Hey guys, if you enjoy Will There Be Cake, don't forget to rate and review on iTunes or wherever you're listening.
Welcome to another episode of Will There Be Cake? I'm your host, Amber Simpson, and with me, Robert Lamb.
I feel like you almost forgot it. You almost forgot the title.
I almost forgot your name.
Okay, that's rude.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
fine. I haven't known you that long.
yeah, it's happened.
Joining us today is Zane and Ian.
What's up, guys?
What's up, everybody?
Thanks
Yeah.
for coming, guys.
Back again.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
This is a fun day.
Again.
I'm excited.
What?
Okay.
Cool. Never mind.
All right. Thanks,
We're good.
Robert.
Yeah. What day is it, Amber Simpson?
It is Free Comic Book Day.
Oh my gosh.
Have you ever attended a Free Comic Book Day?
Nope.
Get the fuck out.
I've seen a comic book. I mean, I've read comic books.
Is it because it's right in
and
front of me?
I've gotten a free comic book
Do
from
you
somebody.
own any comic books?
Yeah.
Which one?
Not many.
Okay.
Like Batman ones and Spider-Man.
Okay.
Which ones
You
are
can
you
say.
selling?
Like
You can say.
the Amazing Spider-Man, like the originals. But it's like like in the book
The
form,
trade.
like the volumes
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, the trades.
Trade
Yeah.
paperbacks.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Very nice. You can stay.
Thank
you
you.
can stay. I
Appreciate
guess.
it. I mean, I got some graphic novels.
Okay, that counts.
I got like
How graphic?
so gory and graphic.
Erotic?
Not erotic. Again, they're like mostly like Batman superhero type graphic novels. I don't think I have Watchmen. Read Watchmen.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But
that's
I have
good.
like
got Watchmen.
year one, like the Batman ones. I got like year one, and then the Killing Joke, and
Those are like
Those are
newer
good
ones,
ones.
right?
Oh,
Okay.
the
I
Killing
can have
Joke's
new
been
ones
around.
too. Yeah, Killing Joke's been around since what,
Yeah.
the 80s or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Year one's been around for a while too.
long time
Has
too.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are all classics.
I have comics, guys. I
All
read
right.
comic books. Jesus,
All right.
lay off,
Fine.
nerds.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So you're probably more of like, I don't know, the traditional comic book fan, because I'm not big on superhero comic books. I've read some, but I like more of the indie type.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
fine.
why they exist.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
comics for everybody.
Comics for everybody.
Free. Here you go.
Free.
Superhero comics, fantasy comics, whatever you like. There's a comic for you.
That's very true.
Horror,
Erotic.
crime,
There's erotic
Erotic
comics.
Western,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
westerns,
Science fiction.
Science fiction.
There's literally
Or-
everything.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, it's
That's
good
the
stuff.
cool thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very diverse.
Yep.
So
Wow.
yeah,
And something most people don't know about comics is that it's one of America's only actual art form that was created here
In
in,
America?
the States. In
Really?
America. Yep.
Nice.
whoa,
Nice.
good to know.
I
I think
know
I
that.
think like jazz music might be the other thing or something, but
Mm.
comics
So jazz
is
and comics.
a totally American art form.
Hell
Man.
yeah.
Awesome.
And Japan just like went with it. They're probably like better
The
at it than
manga.
us now.
Like all the manga stuff.
Different,
Yeah,
very different.
it is very different.
Yeah. You have to read from the back to the front.
That's it.
That's
That's
different.
what
Yeah.
makes it different.
That's it.
That's it. You got it.
Yep. Thank you.
End of podcast.
Yep.
We did it, guys.
We know the difference. Yeah.
So what about Free Comic Book Day?
What about? I don't know.
Well, you
What
can
about
go
it?
to your local comic store. If you can't find one, you can look it up. There's a comic shop locator.
Yeah.
Is it a
online.
specific one though that they give away for free?
They give away a bunch of different ones.
Okay.
Like there are certain selections that the publishers decide they want to give away.
Right.
And then
right,
the
right.
retailers at the comic stores, they actually have to pay a small amount to get them.
Yeah, I read it's like 12 to 50 cents
And something like that, yeah.
per comic that's just out of their own
Right.
pocket.
Right.
So then you get to go and you can try these cool new comics. If you've never tried a comic, you can go in and pick up a couple for free. If you've read one comic and you want to try a different one, maybe it's the one that's for free and you can pick that one up. And then while you're there, most of these stores usually have like some kind of sale going on or
Right.
other incentives.
Right. To
Or
get
like
you
some
buying,
artists
Yeah.
Get you
or
to buy. Yeah,
authors are
artists come
there.
in and they'll
Yeah.
sign for you, and
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a fun time. People
a
dress up in
definite fun
cosplay sometimes.
yeah, it's a cool time.
That's cool.
Yeah, if
It's
you go and you get some free comics, just remember that these guys have to pay to give you those free comics.
Right, so buy
Right.
something.
So buy something,
Yeah.
Buy something, a little something. Doesn't have to be a lot, but buy a comic or two.
Right. So, I mean, it basically was created, and I mean, it helped the comic book industry because in 2001, this guy named Joe Field, he was writing for a magazine in the comic industry, and he realized that there's like a resurgence in purchases in the comics books in the wake of all the recent flow of comic book franchise movies.
Yeah,
so.
when all the big movies started.
Oh
coming.
yeah, that's
Right,
when they became
People went
popular.
crazy
Yeah.
for when the Batman movies came, comic sales went up, and Spider-Man and all that stuff. It was like this was before now, when every other week there
There's
was
a
a
new
big,
spot,
big
yeah.
Yeah.
movie. Back then, it was like a big thing, right? Back
Well, especially
in the early
like
2000s.
yeah, when Spider-Man came out, I heard that was like the real big boom. Because I mean,
Well, that's
obviously you had
that's
the Tim Burton Batmans like in the
Yeah.
80s and stuff like in the 90s, but it was really the Spider-Man one that
Spider-Man
really
one, and
launched.
That's when it
I believe
started.
that's when it
2000,
started, right?
2002 was the
Yeah.
first one with the Spider-Man release because they were hoping that to ride the wave of
Yeah.
the promotion of the Spider-Man movie.
Right.
So,
So,
they
yeah.
tied it in with like the same weekend release date of that
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man
Okay.
movie.
Nice.
To try to get people to come in who are thinking about comics,
Mm.
because they could never find a way to get them into the actual theaters. So they tried to get the people from the theaters to the comic stores.
And when I was working at the movie theater here downtown St. Pete, I mean, I know the people that work at Emerald City Comics as one of our local comic book stores, and they would bring us cases of free comic book day comics.
I do remember those. Yeah.
Yeah, from whatever movie was coming out. Every time there's a superhero movie, they
Like if
bring
it was
us,
X-Men, they would have like X-Men.
and
free
they
comics
would
stuff.
always like it's like they planned ahead. They would save some, even if it wasn't around a free comic book day. They would save some and bring us a couple cases so that we could hand them out. They would get people to come to their store.
Yeah, it's
And
very
See, I read
smart
those.
marketing.
I read all those when we used to have
Yeah.
those. I would bring them up into projection and read those.
Yeah.
So I've gotten some free
See,
comics.
there you go. It worked.
Yeah.
yeah, you
Well,
don't
I
even
didn't,
have
go,
to.
I didn't go to
You
the
didn't go buy
store. I didn't
anything,
go to the
but-
store, but
But it
I read
almost
them
worked.
there. Yeah, they almost got me.
It works. It
Almost.
works on
Yeah.
some people. It
Well,
really that made the comic book industry healthier and increased the gross of comic book sales.
Sometimes they would put the comics on the ground and they would lead it all the
is
way
that what
to
it
the
is?
comic
To the
book
comic
store.
book
And
store.
I remember
Yeah.
getting almost to the door and I went, no, hold on.
I see what you're doing
Yeah, I see
here.
this. You'll get me next time. Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah, it's
Comic books have like picked up obviously because of all the movies and people are really into the superhero stuff, which is why I went back and read some of the ones that are like I looked up like what's the most popular Batman ones, which ones are the most popular Spider-Man, or like just DC and Marvel, which ones are popular. But also I read like Watchmen and V for Vendetta and stuff like that too, because I just want to see what were the best like graphic novels. I always like looking at lists of like what are the best so I can kind of get an idea.
Well, those are the best stories, the classics.
Right.
Mhm.
So you guys have a favorite like comic series or a favorite writer or artist, comic book artist?
Alan Moore.
Alan Moore's a genius. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love Neil Gaiman. You ever read
The Sandman.
The Sandman?
I started
stuff?
reading
Oh,
them.
nice. Yeah, I read
I
Sandman.
mean, that stuff is, amazing.
I just signed up for the Comixology on Amazon, and
Oh,
even
yeah?
though I don't really like reading on my Amazon Kindle
Yeah.
as much as having like the actual paper, but like it's kind of cool. Like a lot of them are free on there. Like the
Mhm.
first like 4 issues of Sandman are on there.
Yeah.
First like 3 of the Swamp Thing. Like there's
Cool.
like a lot of, and I read all the Star Wars ones.
Nice.
They had all of those
Nice.
for free, like all the Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader one. I think I went through all of the new ones, the Darth Vader
Nice.
series.
Cool.
So that
Yeah,
was
that's
cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Zane? I know you like.
It's hard to pinpoint a favorite. I'm a big fan of the Batman.
Yeah.
That's always been my go-to. Big fan of Sam Keith's art. The Max series. was a
Okay,
really
yeah.
good storyline. I really enjoyed
Very
those.
cool stuff.
Green Lantern. I've always been a fan of the Green Lantern. I started reading in the late 80s, early 90s. Back, when you pick them up at the grocery store or the bookstore, they had the spinner
Sure.
racks. And,
Yeah.
my
Before there
MO
were really
was
comic stores.
I'd sit on the floor and read 2 comic books while my mom was doing the grocery shopping, and then I'd pick out one that I'd buy and take home. So
Nice.
there's a lot that I read that I never actually got, but,
Right.
then I'd usually generally get the Batman or Green Lantern.
Nice. As a kid, I didn't really read too many comic books. I think the first one I read was when I thought I was a little goth kid and as a teenager, and it's called I Feel Sick by Jonan Vasquez. It's really dark, but it was a lot of fun, and I loved it then. But since then, I've kind of expanded. I have read some superheroes. I brought a stack of some of my favorite trades with
I read
me
all
today.
those.
You read all the Scott Pilgrim
I read
ones?
all the
Did
Scott
you read them
Pilgrims.
before the movies came
Yep.
out? Yeah.
When the movie was coming out, I heard about the comic, and then I there's like 6 issues or something. So I was like, or 6 volumes. So I'm like, I'll read through all of them.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim's one of my favorites.
I've ever read those.
Really? I have them all.
The book is like pretty, or the movie's pretty close to the book. Too.
Yeah, you've seen the movie.
The movie's good.
Yeah, and it is kind of because the movie is kind of
really close.
It's like watching a comic book.
But that Watchmen was the same way. Like Watchmen was almost like to a T.
Sin City. That was
Sin City.
City
for frame.
Sin City was
Frame
frame for frame. Yeah, they
did a good job with that.
Yeah.
That one really turned me on to Frank Miller. I went out and bought all the graphic novels from the Sin City.
I think we were talking about that the second one. You said you weren't like. I didn't see the second one.
Yeah, well, for me,
the
like
movie.
when Sin City came out, like it was unlike anything I'd ever seen.
Right.
You know, the cinematography, the style, it was so stylistic. Yes. The stories were just, I was blown away.
Right.
And, you know, like I said, I went out and bought all the graphic novels afterwards, read all the stories, watched the movie a million times. When the second one came out, I wasn't as overwhelmed. Like, it wasn't something new. It wasn't a new style.
Used to it by then.
Yeah.
I was used to it. Yeah, it wasn't something fresh. You know,
and it was
like
just based on a different
more
Sin
of the
City
same.
Yeah, story. Yeah.
Not only that,
Dame to Kill For, I think.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
so
the first one, obviously, they picked the best stories for the first one. So the second one was the stories that didn't make it to the first movie.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, not really. The first one was based on the first series, and the second one was based on the next series.
Was it?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because in the second movie was when
Dame to Kill For is the next storyline.
That was
I
after
forget
the
character's
original
name.
Mark.
It was before he got plastic surgery, because he got plastic surgery at the end to go into hiding, and that was like in the second movie there was like the prequel story to what was in the first movie.
I don't know the continuity of how they work, but
it's
I
been a
just
while
know
since
that
I
it was
read.
based on the
next
next
one.
story of comics.
Okay.
Whether they took place before, after, years later, I don't remember.
I didn't see the second one.
I know
but
there was some jumbling in
I mean,
where the stories took place, because Marv
yeah.
was still in it, even though he died in the first movie. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Okay, well, okay.
But like he wasn't like main character, I don't believe, but he had like some little appearances.
What was the first one? 2005.
You're asking us. That's your
Yeah, right.
You're the
Well, I'm
movie
trying to think
dates.
because the other one came out like 10 years later, right?
Mhm.
Or like maybe like 12 years later, 2016, 17, or something like that.
Something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wasn't that late?
I think it was.
No,
Dame to Kill For?
can't be.
Maybe it was 2000. It had to
Only a few
be.
years later, wasn't
No.
it? 12 years
No.
There was a good.
Is that,
chunk
it
to
had to
It's
be
a
at
lot.
least 10 years.
It was a long
Really?
time. Yeah.
I think so. I'll look it up.
All right.
Look it up.
All
Look it
right.
up.
Well, when I got back into comics, the first thing I picked up was The Walking Dead. That was before the show, and I loved The Walking Dead, and I read it up until the show came out and a little bit after, and then I really hated the show after like the third season. So I stopped reading the comic and stopped watching the show.
I only read the first compendium of The Walking Dead.
Okay.
I didn't read the other, which was I think till issue like 52 or
Yeah,
something.
it's not.
But there's like 4
Oh, yeah.
compendiums and their own.
There's so
so, yeah.
much. The show is still going somehow. I
And there's
don't know.
spin-offs now too. There's
Yeah.
there's a new one
Fear
coming
the
too.
Walking Dead and
Fear the
Another
Walking
one coming after that.
all right, so it was 9 years later,
So it's
2005,
the zombie hype time.
and then this Dame to Kill For came out in 2014.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
14. Wow.
5 and 4. So it's
So-
almost
So almost 10 years. All right.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
But I think my favorite now still is Saga. I don't know if you guys have read Saga, but if you haven't, I can let you borrow the books. They're good.
I have not read
It's
that,
Brian
but I've only heard great things.
Brian
about
K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. They're really good.
Nice.
And then one of the other first ones I read when I came back was Why the Last Man. Have you guys checked
it.
that?
Yes,
It's a good one.
that's a great one.
Yeah. So.
There's
There's
a
some
really
of the
good
Vertigo comics you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
there's a really good indie series a friend of mine turned me onto a while back. It's called Weapon Brown.
Weapon Brown.
It's
okay.
It's post-apocalyptic world, but it's all the comic strip characters.
Oh, nice.
So
Oh, really?
the first issue is all about Charlie Brown, but he's like this
Oh my god.
big buff. He's got a machine gun arm, and
What the heck?
he's been brainwashed, and he's just this killing machine, and he's trying to find the little redhead girl, and his journey takes him to all the other characters. Pigpen's like this heroin addict that like runs and living in the sewers as a homeless guy, and like rats on him, tells him he's coming, and he finds out that it was or he goes to see Marcy, or not Marcy, Peppermint Patty.
Okay.
and she's running a brothel, and Marcy's like her
Oh my
top.
God, what the heck?
And Lucy is the one that brainwashed him,
That
and
makes
it
sense.
leads
Makes
him
sense,
to Linus, who was also part of the program. And Linus has like this telekinetic power over his blanket, kind of like Spawn, and he and Sally are trying to sacrifice the little redhead girl to summon the Great Pumpkin.
Oh my
That's
God.
funny.
And that was just the first issue. And then,
Wow.
then after that, they introduced Calvin and Hobbes and
Oh my God.
So like,
Wizard of
they get
Oz.
away with it.
all
yeah, I
of
was gonna
them,
say,
Garfield,
so
all
they
of
can
them.
do. Who is it? Charles Schultz. Schultz is
Yeah.
Charlie Brown, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so like, did he have to get his permission to use
I have
those
no
likenesses?
idea.
I
I mean,
would have had to.
I would
I don't know
assume
how
so.
he did it.
It's
I mean,
one thing if
there's-
it's like a spoofy type thing, which I
it
guess
kind
it
of
is.
You know, it's not.
So maybe, but again, I think if you're using like the character names and like
Yeah.
their likenesses,
Yeah, it's like I said, it's an independent. I think Jason Bluth.
I don't know who that
You
is.
should don't mention his name on the air.
Well, I mean, it's the
Jason.
artist.
Jason.
Sorry,
That's what it
Jason.
is.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, but
Something
that's-
like that.
I'll have to check it out.
I mean, it
it's
sounds
really cool.
It
It's
sounds good.
That sounds
very
interesting.
graphic.
Wow.
You know,
would
Calvin
read
and
that.
Hobbes' tiger like actually comes to life and mauls
All attack
everybody.
people, really. That's pretty
Good
awesome.
stuff. Good stuff.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Nice.
Does Far Side Gallery count as a comic?
Comic strip. Kind
Okay.
of.
All right.
If you put them all together in a book,
Right.
yes, it counts.
I'm just saying, I think that was probably my first one ever that I read.
Okay.
Was the Far Side
Far Side?
Gallery. Yeah. I just remember reading the
the-
booklets and stuff.
The calendar, you said?
No, not the calendar.
Oh.
Like the books. Like they had like the
Oh,
books
yeah,
at
yeah.
like Barnes and Noble or
Yep.
like wherever the bookstores were, and like I just
Those were just individual like panel strips, right? Like each one was just one panel.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think so.
One shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eminem.
Now, if you said Calvin and Hobbes, that would count because you can. There's more
I
panels.
think there's
to it.
more panels for Far Side. I think they had a couple that were like two, but maybe not. Maybe they're all one shot.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
The only ones
I
I
don't
can picture were just one frame. With
Yeah,
a
I'm pretty sure it was just.
I mean, they
visual
might have
with
been.
some caption,
Yeah.
That's true.
Hmm.
which was kind of its charm because he could pack so much in. And
Well, that's
so
not.
little
Yeah,
space.
you do like just one. You have to get the joke and everything in
Mhm.
one picture.
All right, we're getting off topic of Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
Those aren't comic.
Well,
books.
okay. So then, how do you celebrate Comic Book Day? You just go to
You just go, yeah.
and
Go get
to
some
your
free
local
comics.
retailer.
Yeah. Buy
Check it
something.
out.
Dress up.
Go to their
Dress
website,
up.
find the local comic store, go in there, buy some comics, get some free ones, meet some cool people,
Yeah.
dress up like your favorite character,
It's a
meet
good
some
time.
cool artists, get them to do a sketch for you or get
Yeah.
something signed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Join the crowd.
You got this one signed,
cool.
Amber Simpson.
I did. I got this signed at New York Comic Con. This is one of my newer favorites. It's called Sex Criminals. It's like
Who signed it?
these two, Chip Zdarsky and Matt Fraction. They're both really fun guys,
Yeah.
and they just had a line where they released covers where artists from that do other comic books released their own covers, but they were all like X-rated covers, so they came in like like a cover.
Yeah,
Obviously,
like
you
fun.
couldn't
You
see
couldn't see
it
through.
until you opened it, but they were all like X-rated.
Cool.
But the basis of the comic is like these. They have like a superpower, and when they have sex, they kind of go into this like frozen other world where they can like traverse the world while everyone else is not moving. Kind of, it's like kind of like stops time. And then like the main character meets a guy who has the same thing, and they figure it out. And then there's like these other people who have the same power, and like they're trying to like stop people from. I don't know. It's crazy, but it's a lot of fun.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Interesting.
I'd check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
But yeah, that's Comic Book Day. There's
Solid.
celebrate by
Solid
That's
comic
it.
book
reading
day.
comics and going to Comic Book Day.
So
All right.
this is like what started in 2002?
2002, yeah.
So this is like the
Yeah.
18th year.
Yeah,
Nice.
pretty
and every
impressive.
time I go to one, it's fucking packed.
It's always,
Oh, I'm sure.
always busy.
Yeah, you got to go early.
Yeah.
Get the comics you want.
I think pretty much every comic book store in the world
Doesn't.
is part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big day for them.
It's a big day.
Well, obviously that's great and all, but we gotta get down to the main question of the day. What will there be a cake?
I mean, why not?
For sure.
I mean,
Definitely cake.
I mean, I don't see like why you wouldn't
Right.
like need a cake or have a cake.
As
Well,
a comic book collector, snacks and comics do not
Right.
go together.
You can eat the cake, wash
Eat
your
your
hands, and then read your comic.
wash
Yes.
your hands. Then
honestly, you should be washing your hands anyways.
Well, yeah.
20 seconds, sing happy birthday, then eat your cake and read a comic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just think you can have a cake because why not?
And there's so many like comic characters that you could get on cakes that people do.
That's
get on
true.
Cakes.
Like if you're gonna celebrate it, like you have a lot of people over or something, get like a
How
a
many kids'
superhero.
birthdays are superhero related?
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Yep.
Are there any
Comics are all over the
cake-related
mainstream.
superheroes?
Cake related
Cake-related? I don't-
superheroes. When I mean, probably there's cake. There's comic books for everything.
I bet you there's one.
What would Cake Man's powers be?
Cover you in frosting.
Give you diabetes.
I don't know about that. Never mind.
Could control the minds of fat people.
yeah. They just want to keep eating cake. That's how it slows them down.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let them eat cake.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess that's solid.
Right.
Well-rounded. Everybody agrees. Cake on comic book. Free comic book day.
Yeah.
Not on the comic book.
Not on the
Not on the
comic book,
comic
but
book.
on the day.
Eating,
Eat
between
it
reading
separately.
comic
Go to
books.
comic book day. Come home. Eat some cake. Wash your hands. Read
Watch
your
your hands
comics.
and then
you
read
got.
your comic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
All
All
right.
right.
Dry your hands too.
I think that does it
Well,
for.
yeah.
Don't ruin
You don't
your
want wet
gums.
hands.
No. I think that does it for Free Comic Book Day.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
for
us.
having
Ian.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Go to comics. Get comics.
Go to comics.
This has been a Seven Lamb production.